Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Write for Your Life. I'm Caleb.
And I'm Timothy.
Sadly, we did not record right after the previous session,
I forgot about that.
mostly because we talk too much and we run out of time. But I think that's a good thing. We usually have about an hour to record these. The edited version is clearly much shorter than how much time we actually spend talking. The 30-minute recording turns into 45 minutes, almost an hour of us actually talking. So,
So we lied in the last episode. It was unintentional at the time. We didn't know we were lying.
and that's going to happen quite a bit. So, we're doing what we can. Also, you may have noticed we have a new logo.
It's amazing.
Yeah, the previous logo was created by me on Google Slides, not even PowerPoint. But this was created by Kimberly. So, shout out to Kimberly.
I will admit that I did change the aspect ratio of it in PowerPoint. So technically it did go through a slideshow app, but that was just to make it square instead of a rectangle. Why would you use a photo editing software when you can use PowerPoint? It is the most powerful. Hence the name. It's right there.
It's kind of funny that PowerPoint has become the synonymous word for a slide deck, like Kleenex has become the name for tissue.
It's pretty impressive.
Those words that become so ubiquitous that you lose the trademark on the word because the word becomes too popular. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing if you're a company.
I'm sure in the short term it probably stings a little bit, but I mean it is the go-to choice. And I think that's for a reason. Like I think Kleenex it probably hurt them because I mean when was the last time you brought name brand Kleenex? I'm
Never.
buying store brand tissues. I've never bought a Kleenex. But with something like PowerPoint, I mean I honestly I hate Google Slides. Like I know it's basically the same program, but I I just can't do it. I'm too used to the Microsoft software. So I don't know. I think there's probably arguments to be made in both ways.
Probably so, but there are some things that I am not going to get the great value brand. I had to do it on Google Slides because I did not have access to PowerPoint. So I also made it in like 3 minutes, but this took significantly more time and effort, and the logo looks absolutely wonderful and amazing. So
Yeah.
cannot thank you enough.
Thanks, Key. Whenever she listens to it, as of this moment, she has not listened to any of the episodes. So
Oh, okay, that's cool. That's nice.
no, but we've been very busy, so it's understandable.
And whether this is your first time listening, first time finding us, or it is your, I guess, fourth, because that's how many episodes we have, time listening to us, welcome. We hope that today that we can give you something that is enjoyable, give you something that is inspiring. With that, anything else you want to bring up before we dive into today's piece?
No, I think we go for it. This is going to be an interesting one. I'm really excited to hear what this recording sounds like.
Yes, it is. Oh, you haven't heard, so this is your first time listening to it.
Well, no, but I'm saying that for the effect of the show. I've listened to it like twice already.
Ah, okay. See, I see. I don't know. I don't know whether you've listened to it or not. Don't worry. This all gets cut.
If you leave this in, this is a peek behind the curtain, and we lied again, and I'm sorry.
No, we lied again, and I'm not sorry. This is called keeping up the illusion that this is a podcast and not just an excuse for us to talk about and do things and say things and pretend that people are listening.
True, true, which is very cool, and we appreciate all of you.
With that, we will see you on the other side. The man with the black footsteps. You can hear him coming, but it's already too late. He has secured your death date. You have been found guilty. The weight of your soul has been measured. You are bound for hell's treasure. Do you hear him now? His steps echo down the hall for you, for a payment long overdue. The tap, tap, tapping of the tip of his boots, the rap, rap, rapping of his steps against the ground, The tink, tink, tinking of his spurs are already heard throughout town. The smell of cigar smoke drifts in front of him to warn you of his coming, to prepare you for your end. You shouldn't run, you shouldn't try to hide, unless you want everyone to see your lack of pride. It is only evil that he comes to stalk, for the righteous never falter before his flame, and they never have to play his terrible game. The guilty need to flee, they feel burning against their soul, and their end is in his control. He does not have much to fill his days, but he enjoys your desperate strife and any attempt to protect your dying life. He comes to collect on the devil's due. Even if you try your best, he will bring you low at the heaven's behest. Though it may not seem so, he is not just a man. He is the soul collector's backup plan. I ask you again, do you hear him calling your name? Whispering for you to die the same? Get your affairs in order, settle any debts, enjoy the sun before it sets. It is your judgment. The black footsteps can already be seen making their way, for it is your final day. The man with black footsteps, he does not sleep. He only comes to sow what you reap. He does not stop. He will hunt you down with a simple walk. It will be quick. You won't even get to talk. The smoke rises to heaven like an offering. The burning of the ground beneath his feet fills the heavens with a scent that is sickly sweet. He looks like the devil, but his wrath is divine. Do you know that it is your time? So, what did you think?
Man, it's good. That is one where you reading it out loud really transforms it. I think the past few pieces have been interesting hearing it in your voice versus my own head voice, but this one just comes alive when you read it. Like it's spooky, it's eerie, it's a little bit horror inspired. And reading it is really interesting, but when you read it out loud and I hear it verbally going along, I just got sucked into it. Like I wasn't even thinking about, oh, here's the meaning behind this stanza, or here's what you did with this rhyming scheme or anything like that. It was just, I was in exactly the frame of mind that I think you wanted me to be in. I think this is a great example of why you wanted to do this podcast, because, I mean, it's so good.
When I was going to read this, I sort of had two different interpretations of this, and maybe I'll record the other interpretation later. The one interpretation, which was what I originally had in my head when writing it, was this really frantic person reading it. Like from a horror movie, my initial thought was like this guy comes across this person who has like trembling hands and like really buggy eyes and is super freaked out and looks up at him and starts reciting this to him. That's not the interpretation I went with for this reading.
Yeah.
Instead, I went with the other idea in my head, which is someone is asking about him. And this is the response of like, who is this person? And it's like, yes, the man with the black footsteps.
I can kind of picture how the other interpretation would go. I'm personally very happy you went with this one, because it elicits a feeling of dread more than it does fear, if that makes sense. And I think that really works well.
The feeling of inevitability.
That's the word. Yeah.
And that's one of my personal favorite tropes when it comes to horror or action or anything like that, is there's a bad man coming. Just frankly, right? It is the John Wick Baba Yaga. It's that sort of feeling of okay, this person's coming, and you know they're coming, and you also know that there's nothing you can do.
So on that vein, this is more for me, and you can cut this out if you feel like it. But was this inspired in any way by the book that I have read, or was it just like a similar idea in your head?
So this was not based upon my first book, the book that you have read, or at least read the rough draft of.
Mm-hmm.
It is based on a different idea that I had. This was supposed to be, and this may still be, the main antagonist for a different book.
Oh.
This is the initial character concept for this person, where he's called the man with the black footsteps because everywhere he walks, he sort of leaves this, I don't know if it's shadow or if it's burn, but
Mm-hmm.
all of his steps leave black footprints, black footsteps wherever he walks. And that builds this mythos, that builds this dread around this character. Because I'm sure that if you walked about and you were walking around in downtown, you saw a bunch of black footsteps walking, you'd be like, that's kind of odd. But then if you saw a person actively leaving them as they were walking, you'd be like, oh no, I don't know why this is bad, but it's bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I would drive home at that point.
I've already started writing this book. I've written the opening chapter for it. I have the character concepts. I have the main character. I have the antagonist. I sort of have a rough throughput of what everything is. A lot of the other pieces have been lesson pieces, or they have this like deep symbolic meaning behind them. And this is more of a character concept.
That makes sense. It is very different from a lot of the other ones, and it's clear that it's just like, hey, this is we're going for a specific vibe here. There's not a moral or anything like that. Like this is just supposed to make you feel a certain way, and it does very effectively.
Yeah, because the one thing that I wanted it to be, I I write about death very often. It is something
Yeah.
that's a recurring theme. I've even dubbed myself in my book as the scribe of death, the author, Caleb. And I like imagining these different versions of death. Particularly, I highlight in this one that he will bring you low at the heaven's behest, and he looks like the devil, but his wrath is divine. There's this crossover between him acting and being and looking like a sort of demonic being, but there's also this heavenly element to it as well. That idea that death more so is than it is good or evil. It simply is. It is a force of nature more so than a strictly good or bad thing.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a uh I had the word just a second ago. It's not an order, it's something else. Not an order, not a calling. It's a really cool sounding word. But basically, it's like there is this spiritual
Just Google it. Just Google it.
yeah, hang on. Mandate. That's the word. It's a mandate. Okay. Yeah. So it's almost like he has a spiritual mandate that is not. It doesn't have any moral things tied to it or anything like that. It's just like this is the thing that you're doing, and it's just that. That thought sounded way cooler when I was planning it.
Well, it's the epitome of sort of the D&D lawful neutral, right?
Yeah.
I think that can be an uncomfortable idea that there is a person who is following a law that is so much different than your own. Like their law is to get name, go and execute. And
Mm-hmm.
that's it. That is the law. It's like your job is execution. And your
Yeah.
job is not to ask questions. Your job is not to determine if you are guilty or not guilty. All of that's already been decided. Your job is simply to do this.
From the mortal side, you get that inevitability of, oh, this is going to happen to you, And so then you can explore either, oh, well, what happens with the one person who does get to avoid it? Because that's an interesting story. Or what I think is even more interesting, which is that how do you react to that? Like, you know the end point of the story. You know nothing is going to change that end point. So as a character, what happens to you? Like, how do you process that? And I think that's a really, really, it allows you to explore so many like themes and emotions and thoughts and stuff that you wouldn't get to explore in another setting.
Right. And I even hint in the story that something's already gone wrong. In this very short piece, he is the Soul Collector's backup plan. He is not plan A, he is plan B. So in order for him to be here, something has already gone wrong. You must have already have cheated death once before. Or, there's some other mystery that is going on here that makes him be here, because he wouldn't be here otherwise.
So on a slightly different tack, to get a little more technical with the poetry of it, generally when you see a poem that is loose like this with its meter, like, it has the rhyme scheme, it has, set stanzas and all that stuff, but the meter within the stanzas is very loose. Normally that's got a specific point to it. Did you have a reason, or was it just, hey, this is what feels right?
So a lot of times, particularly when I'm writing poetry, I will start out just writing, and I'm not trying to rhyme or be clever. I'm just trying to get my thoughts down on paper in the format that I'm thinking about them. And I started writing it out with the original intention of it being read in this frantic voice. And I found myself unintentionally rhyming a couple of times. And so I was like, okay, let me purposely do this. Let me change the words that I'm using to rhyme more. But I didn't want it to be a perfect meter because it didn't feel right. This is someone's response to this character. Not that it is purposefully trying to rhyme. I try not to force too many things. I wanted it to feel very natural. And trying to fit it into a specific meter would have done that, I think.
That makes a lot of sense. It certainly gives the feeling of this is not something that's planned. This is not something that is I think meter at times can give a feeling of control, and it can give a little bit of a happier feeling, because it's like, oh, this is nice. The numbers fit. It feels happy in my brain. And this doesn't have that. And that adds to that uncomfortableness and the inevitability and it's completely out of, either the speaker's or the reader's control what we're talking about right now.
When you look at this visually, it's a 3-sentence structure where the scheme kind of goes A, B, B, C, D, D, E, F, F, etc. as I'm going. And I like the idea that when the person is speaking this, they have the idea of the thing that they're trying to convey, that sentence 1, and then sentence 2 further elaborates on sentence 1, right? Mm-hmm. So you have your A that goes into your 2 B's. And so it's a idea, 2-sentence follow-up, idea, 2-sentence follow-up, idea, 2-sentence follow-up, which is an easy structure for me to write in mentally because I like having an idea, explaining idea, having an idea, explaining idea, or going further into that. And I think that that's a little bit easier visually. I also do break that up verbally, as I'm going through it. But having that, it just feels right to me, particularly in this case when you're describing the attributes of a character.
And it also, the 3s, again, if you're looking at like the most classic iambic pentameter, A, B, A, B, C, C, all of that, it's even numbers, it's set meter, it's all of this stuff, and this has none of that. And I think, for me at least, the 3 lines feels a little incomplete. It feels like it doesn't quite fit, because whenever I've written poetry, just a sneak peek into my mind here, it's like I can't write outside of iambic pentameter. It's the only thing I can write in. Seeing this, it feels so much outside of what I'm comfortable with, and I think that just adds to what I experience when reading it or listening to it.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's very hard to write in iambic pentameter. It's hard to write in a set structure. And I think it's because I've been doing this for so long. I have been writing short stories and little sorts of poems since I was since I was in 10th grade, a sophomore in high school. Um, and that's about a decade at this point. So I've had a significant amount of time to adopt and develop a writing style and a format that feels comfortable and natural to me, as well as have explored a variety of different other things that I enjoy writing about and other formats I like writing about. And to sort of reiterate a point that we've made, I'm not classically trained in this. I didn't take a creative writing class in college. Like all of my formal education is engineering and mathematics based. And even a lot of my reading, I don't often spend times reading poetry. I'm often reading other novels, or I am, watching movies or watching anime or doing something like that. So trying to fit a classic style poetry format can be very difficult for me at times.
I have always been impressed by that. I think it's cool that you can just sit down and let your brain speak, and this is what comes out. That's really cool.
I think what something to do if you're wanting to get started with this is get the idea on paper first and then get the formatting back later. It's like when you're cooking, right? Like you don't start out with a full meal. You start out with a bunch of ingredients. So line up all of your ingredients, all of the things that you would like to work with, all of the ideas that you have, and then you can combine them into a nicer piece.
I know that's really good advice, and I know that's going to be so difficult for me because as soon as I started writing, even like, school essays and stuff like that, I have never been a rough draft person. I get the idea in my head. I'll maybe outline if it's a complex thing. I'll write down, oh, here's what I want in these sections. And then I will write, and it's almost like I cannot move past a sentence until it feels right to me. So I'm editing as I go. And in school, my first drafts were essentially my final drafts with a couple changes. And it took me a really long time to write the first draft, but then I was basically done. And I'm noticing the same thing happen with my book and with other things I've written. And I think breaking out of that, I know it's going to be good for me. I know I need to do it, and I need to just let the things I write be bad for a while so that I can practice getting them out. But man, that's tough.
Oh, if you're a perfectionist, especially, it can be. This is something that I actually carried with me from my freshman year of high school, where I had to do a research paper on a on an author or a poet or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget his name, but he sort of has the life philosophy of like wabi sabi, which is a Japanese philosophy, I think, that sort of focuses on like the beauty of imperfection.
Mm.
And I take that approach when I write is let me just get this sort of beautifully broken, misshapen thing out and down. And then I can go back later and see what pieces of this that I do really enjoy and what pieces of this that I want to remove or edit or add to. And I think that is part of the creative process for me that sort of separates my work from, or at least separates my creative process maybe from other people, is I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a super rough draft. Like I'm writing a second book right now, and I each chapter winds up being about 1,000 to 1,100 words, and I know that when I go back, it's going to wind up being somewhere between 2,500 to 5,000 words. But that's not the point. The point isn't to get there first. The point is to get my idea down and then keep building and keep building and keep building and keep building.
That is something that I should investigate more, I think, because I don't know if just me as a person, I don't know if I'll go all the way that you did. I don't think I'll go full Caleb, but I think a healthier dose of that in my life would probably be good.
My goal is not to say that the way that I do things is good or right. I actually want to make it very clear that most of the time that I believe the opposite. I actually don't write cleanly or efficiently at all. At all. I don't. And I haven't. And I'm probably not going to because it isn't the way that my creative process works. But what does work is trying and attempting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's something where, it would be good and healthy for me to be able to write like you do. Not necessarily that I would. In terms of the pantser plotter, I'm 100% a plotter. But being able to break out of that is important because it's another tool in my toolbox. And then I'm making a conscious decision to write the way that I write if I choose not to write that way. It's not just, oh, this is how I've always done it, so this is how I'm going to do it. It's, I have all these different ways that I could write, and this is the one that I prefer. And that feels like an advancement in, my writing skill, even if I'm doing the exact same thing I was doing before.
It is, and it's because it's the greater variety of tools in your tool belt where you may not need it often, but it's good to have for those times and those cases in which you do need them.
Well, that went pretty far. We strayed a long way from the path there, but I'm not upset.
We let things flow through. This is a pantsing
You tricked me!
podcast.
No!
This is a pantsing podcast, not a plotting podcast.
Darn it!
For those of you who don't know exactly what that means, there are sort of two types of, they say there's sort of two types of people. People who fly by the seat of their pants and people who plot everything out, right? So you're either a pantser or a plotter. And this is very much just a fly by the seat of your pants sort of situation.
Yep, which is probably good for me because I have been a plotter. I mean, anything I do, I've been planning out in advance. I mean, I didn't even start building characters for my book until I had the bulk of the plot ready. And I I know that that's not the way you work.
Yeah, we'll go into more of that at a different time, or we'll go further down the tangent trail here. So, let's move into the next segment.
Yeah. That was a pretty clean segue this time.
Well, I was waiting for you to, try something new or weird or different this time, like you did last time. But
I want it to feel natural, and nothing came to me. And seeing as you're encouraging me to be imperfect in all of this, we're just going to let it be an imperfect transition, and I'm going to pretend to be okay with that, and then wake up sweating in the middle of the night thinking of what I could have said.
fair enough. What are you working on?
So, last episode I said I had two things, and I was going to talk about the other one when we recorded the next episode, which was going to be right after that one, which wasn't the case, but I still have the second thing. Because on the vacation, which at this point was multiple weeks ago, I had that, I was building my character and I had that moment of, oh, I have to rewrite the end of the story. And so that happened, and then it just felt like everything was clicking into place. So then I just started writing. I had, I think, 2 paragraphs of the first chapter of the book, and now I'm pushing 3,000 words. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but for my first time ever writing anything in this, like anything like this, it felt really good because I knew what needed to happen. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to feel, but I had the story beats. And so I just started writing the story beats, and it was fun to see how everything came alive, and things happened that I didn't fully expect. And I got through the entire second chapter, and I'm really happy about it. I feel like there's momentum. I feel like there's proper pacing. I'm so excited about it. But the biggest thing I want to talk about is I have been experimenting with a way of doing dialogue. I need to be really careful not to overuse it because I like it so much, and I've already written multiple just little sections of nothing that are in this style of dialogue, where you have 2 characters talking, and it's probably an exposition-heavy scene. In the case in the book, it's the first introduction of, I guess, the secondary main character. And he is talking to a friend, acquaintance, somebody like that, in this gentleman's club in the 1920s. So, everybody's eating their biscuits and smoking and, playing pool and whatnot. and I have them talking, and it's just so much exposition. And I think it would be really boring if it was just them talking, even if I wrote good dialogue, which I don't think I do. But even if it was good dialogue, it would still just be dry. And here's an info dump. So the thing I love, and I think I've read this in other books, but the thing that I did is there's this subplot going on somewhere else in the Drifters Club. I won't say what it is because I want people to, obviously I don't want to spoil everything. But basically, there is this scene playing out on the other side of the Drifters Club. And the two characters are talking, but they're watching this scene play out. And so they'll have, he says something and then the other guy says something. And then part of this scene unfolds. And then they're both kind of reacting to it as they continue talking. And so it's dialogue, scene, dialogue, scene. And it's kind of that structure, and I think it's really fun because I like how it makes me feel when I read it, and I think it gives the dialogue a lot of momentum, and it feels like you're getting somewhere even though all you're doing is feeding information to the reader. You have this thing that you're experiencing almost along with the characters that are talking, and it gives me an opportunity to do some really very Woodhouseian type of writing as well, which I've always enjoyed. And I don't want to go too heavy into that because I don't just want to copy him. I want it to feel like me writing it. But it really helps me figure out where I want the dialogue to go because I almost have a clock. It's like, oh, I've got these 6 story beats in this background scene that are happening. So, okay, I've got 6 sections of dialogue I can use. Let's get the information into those so it feels natural, so it has flow. Then there's the conclusion of the scene, which coincides with the conclusion of the conversation. And then you leave feeling like something's happened. And I'm just so excited about how it turned out.
That sounds awesome. I'll be interested to read it and see how it compares to how I do dialogue as well. It is so hard to not exposition dump.
Yeah.
I think mostly because you have all the information in your head and you want to get it down onto the page. And you're like, okay, now it's here. But is that the best way for it to be there?
And it's stuff that's important to know. It's stuff that the audience needs to understand. But this is especially a sin with movies where, oh, you just tell the audience everything they need to know and it's super boring and it just doesn't work. Getting that to work well is tough.
Part of it is trusting that your audience is intelligent enough to understand the things that you hint at or tell them.
Yes.
Right? Like, you don't have to be explicit, but you should trust that the audience that you are writing to is capable of understanding the things that you don't say.
That's something that I have been working so hard to actively do. One of the main way I'm kind of keeping myself in that mindset is I will omit bits of action or movement or something like that, and the next sentence kind of assumes that something happened. And so you can write, cleaner and tighter that way. And your audience is like, oh, I'm building this in my mind. You're not telling them every little movement that happened. Like, you don't have to say that both characters stood up. You can say, oh, this one character stood up, and then the other character does something else physical, and in your mind's eye, you assume, well, they probably stood up as well because they're both leaving. But you get 2 separate actions, and then you get a complete view of what's happening without explicitly telling the audience everything.
Right, because that's where your writing can get bogged down. I've read some older books like a Jane Eyre where there is a significant amount of exposition that paints a scene, and it can paint it very, very well, but it can also muddle and slow down the pace.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's the point. Maybe the point is that it's very slow and that it's deliberate and that you're building a really complex, beautiful set piece within a very confined space. And so you need to understand a lot of these little details that are happening. Or maybe those things are completely irrelevant and you can omit them and let the reader fill out what the space looks like in their mind.
Because you can't have nothing. The reader has to be able to imagine what's happening. They have to be able to see it. But you don't have to feed them everything. You can let every reader have a different image in their head of what's going on. Yeah, well, what have you been working on?
This week, because we recorded on Monday and then we're now here on Friday, just for a little bit of background. I am hosting a version of Hot Ones for our friends that are up here. For those of you who don't know, Hot Ones is a YouTube show where the host interviews typically a movie star of some sort while they eat increasingly hotter and hotter chicken wings. And I'm playing as the host, which means that tonight I will get to eat like 50 chicken wings, which makes me happy and a little bit scared. So I have been working on gathering information in order to put together questions because they're not movie stars. I don't have, in prep for it, I watched the episode with Jennifer Lawrence. I don't have 10 years of their public history in order to be able to go through and find these fun little intricate details to be able to talk about things with. So as the host of this particular event, I have done what I called tactical espionage. And I have gone through and asked some of their friends or some of their close friends, what's some very weird niche information that you know about this person? So that way I can drop in their mother's name. I could drop in the name of their high school. I can mention their favorite foods. I can point out some personality quirks about them where they are like, how on God's green earth would you know any of this information about me? I asked. It's because I asked. That's how I know. And I think something to sort of bring this back around to writing is I often will do that with my characters to make them feel more alive. I will have a very specific quirk or piece of information to know about a character that has nothing to do with the rest of the book as a whole. It is simply to just give the character more breadth and depth and life. And I think it's also important to like know those things about your friends as well. I think is just some like weird things because they're your friends.
Yeah. Well, I have just multiple things. I'm impressed how you brought it back around. That was really smooth. Also, that sounds so much fun. Are you going to be recording it?
I have debated recording it or not. I may. Well, I'm bringing the laptop that I'm recording on because it has my questions on it.
Yeah.
I may.
I honestly think, like, obviously, I don't want to ruin the enjoyment for anybody there, and it's probably more fun for them if it's just a thing there, but man, do I want to listen to this, because that is going to be so much fun, especially you as the host. It's such a perfect role for you.
I think it could be fun. I'm going to have this laptop only because it's going to have my questions. I may ask if I can record it, and we'll see. Who knows? It definitely will not be ready by the time this episode airs, but maybe we'll keep it in the background somewhere. Maybe it'll be on a social media at some point or things like that. But I'll ask my friends and see what they think. I'm not doxing anyone too hard. Nothing that you can't find publicly available on the internet. I will say that.
Oh, no deep dark secrets. No, dreams you had when you were 7 kind of thing.
No, there's one of my friends in particular that someone found on their social media a flight that they took when they were in high school. And so I have the particular date and time and flight destination of a flight that they took 12 years ago. So, but that's sort of
awesome.
that's what I've been working on this week is that.
I'm so excited to hear how it goes.
Yeah, I'll link out to Hot Ones. They're incredibly popular. So, I mean, we're just dishing out free advertising for a lot of these already extremely popular things.
Oh, I mean that we can kind of be like parasites. We can attach ourselves to them, and then they talked about this thing, so maybe they're popular too. Because that's how marketing works, right? I know business things. I am businessman.
To be fair, marketing is not my strong suit. It's why I never wanted to go into sales. Let's move into what has inspired us this week. I will let you go first.
All right. There's the easy answer of, oh, I started a new book. But I think I want to go a little deeper because this is already going to be our longest episode by far. So let's just make it longer. So me and my wife have bought this board game. It's called Clank. It's amazing. It's like a deck builder board game combination. Super well built. But we got the Legacy version. If you're not familiar with Legacy games, basically the idea is you play through a campaign, and each game you play affects the next game. So, like, one of the most popular ones is Pandemic Legacy. So you're playing through a campaign, and, you know, whether you succeed or whether you fail, you'll have also side quests and stuff like that. And that will affect your next game in terms of difficulty, in terms of power level, in terms of, like, what the story is. And one of the best things about Clank Legacy is that you can play it as just a normal board game afterwards. You don't play through the Legacy and then it's done. You just have a unique copy of the game after that. So, again, plug for something that's super popular, super amazing game, absolutely worth it. Go pick it up. But because it's a Legacy game, it has this story, and it's reminiscent of a Choose Your Own Adventure, where you have this little book, and you know things will happen. It'll tell you, hey, go read page 72, and you'll read page 72, and it'll tell you to do a thing, and you have choices at the end sometimes and stuff like that. But it's been really interesting reading the dialogue in that little book, because they don't have much time to give characterization. They are just communicating something with some flavor text, and then you have your mechanics. And they have to create a story that you can become immersed in, and a story you care about in such a short amount of time, because you can't be reading a novel. The players will get bored, you'll lose the momentum of the game, all of that. So they have such a short time to put necessary characterization in to make you feel a certain way. And they barely describe, like, the characters that show up. Most of the time, they're just one-off characters. Sometimes they're continuing characters, and you get insights into their personality and desires and stuff. But most of the time, it's a one-off character. And they get a single descriptor introducing them. And then you get a few lines of dialogue. And it's fascinating to see how they use a very short description, and then the way they write the characters, because I've been doing voices because I think that's fun, and I never have to question what voice this character has. Like, you get a witch character comes up, and everybody knows the classic witch voice. But as soon as I looked over the dialogue, it was clear that this witch had a different voice. She was a little more hillbilly. She was more like a Appalachian witch as opposed to your classic medieval witch. And it was just immediately obvious from the words they used in the dialogue and how they misspelled specific words that, oh, this is exactly what this witch feels like, and she's different than this other witch we met earlier, and they feel distinct. And I think, I mean, I could probably find more specifics and go into a ton of detail, but it has been a great example of how to give somewhat deep characterization to one-dimensional, one-off characters. And I'm definitely going to be taking from it because it's just really good.
We talked about last week or a couple weeks ago about the creativity and restraint, right? And there's no better place to see that than in a situation in which you have to be brief and you have to be descriptive.
Yeah, I wonder how long it took them to write those.
It either took them not very long or it took them very, very long.
Those are the only two options. There's nothing in the middle.
Not really, no, because it's either, okay, great, I have exactly what I want, this is what they sound like, moving on, or it's like, okay, we wrote way too much, now we have to clamp down, or it's, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, we have to give voices to these characters. We can't just have person A, person B, person C.
Yeah.
What has been keeping me inspired this week? I saw the Backrooms on Tuesday because movies are cheap on Tuesdays. And I want to talk about a particularly brilliant choice, I thought, for the occupation of the main character. So for those of you who don't know, the Backrooms is a horror movie that's come out recently that is essentially about liminal spaces, about this weird, eerie feeling that you get from something like a large open warehouse, or this sensation that you get where imagine being like alone in an airport where you know there's supposed to be people around, but there's just no one around. There's absolutely no one. You hear nothing. You can't see anybody. It's that sort of feeling that it conjures. The occupation for the main character, they are a furniture store owner, but their background is in architecture.
Oh,
And I find that to be
yeah.
a brilliant choice because the character is having to navigate a weird liminal space. So without saying anything about how this character can understand this weird thing, can move about it, can understand what's happening, you sort of know how they know. This character maps out all of the different hallways and things that they're walking down, and they can draw it out in really good detail. And you don't have to be like, well, how on earth does a person do that? Know how to do that? Because you're like, oh, this person is an architect. They understand spaces and floor plans and dimensions and hallways and how things can loop back around onto one another. They can understand all of this. I think being a furniture store owner, they can understand when something is like they're walking around a space and the set dressing, it's like, okay, well, here's this chair that you saw in a scene earlier. Well, now here's this chair again, but it's like weird and off and wrong. So it gives you a bunch of items to sort of mentally track. And when you see them again, you're like, that's not quite right. It's close, but it's not quite right. And it can play with a lot of those things without having to explain it or say it. You just kind of understand and know. It's what we talked about earlier. They trust that their audience is smart enough to understand what is happening.
And that's a great example, kind of going back to last week, of really making sure that your character and your story mesh.
Yeah, the character doesn't feel out of place or out of touch.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that sounds really cool. I knew that movie had come out. I honestly had no clue what it was about. That sounds really fascinating.
It is. It's creepy. It's fascinating. I would go see it. Highly recommended. One of my favorite movies of the year so far.
Wow, that's high praise.
We are well into over our normal recording time. This is going to be a long episode. Be on the lookout for more things coming down the pipeline over the next few weeks. Tim and I are spending a lot of time ideating and thinking about what the next steps are for the podcast and what other avenues of creativity and exploration that we're wanting to do. So we will keep everyone updated as those things happen.
That doesn't mean that we're like, oh, we're done with this format, we're going to do a new format. It's more like, what other things can we do on, in addition to this? Or, hey, let's do like a different type of episode every once in a while or something like that. Like, this is still the conceit of the show. What more can we do, and what other areas can we explore in addition to this, not instead of?
Right. Yeah, this will still be coming at you. This will be coming at you weekly, but we're trying to again add more. Value feels like a bad word.
And if we use content, I'm going to throw up in my mouth.
We're wanting to explore ways that we can connect with you better and also help you to understand us better. Just get a deeper dive and a deeper look at the things that we're doing and writing and seeing. And this is sort of intentionally a longer episode, maybe a little bit longer than than we had even planned for, but this is part of that change in structure. So just be prepared. This is a living, breathing product. So
at least part of the reason why this is a much longer episode is because of some listener feedback about wanting to hear more about specific things. So if you have that feedback, we actually listen. We've implemented a lot of feedback so far. A lot of the ideas in the future are at least inspired by what you guys have told us. So keep that coming. We don't promise to use it, but we will at least consider it. And it's really useful to know not just what we want to do, but what you guys want to hear.
Yeah. And Tim, how can they leave that feedback for us?
Hey, smoothest segue ever. ctwriteforyourlife@gmail.com. Or if you know us personally, you can text us or message us on Discord, but I will not release either of those. Not yet, anyway.
You can leave feedback in the comments below, or you can also write a review for us, and we will be looking at those as well. As usual, we will have descriptions and links in the show notes to a lot of the different things that we have talked about today.
And Caleb's Substack, where you can find all of the writings that we read from, posts a new writing every Wednesday morning when this podcast comes out. So you get a double fix of Caleb in your life, which is always a good time.
And with that, keep writing, keep listening, keep being inspired.